if you don't put any time into it, it really is not possible. I mean, the
intimacy takes time.
Yes. The snatched moments between your both powerful careers is just not going to help you create a good, intimate relationship.
Even when you're holidaying for 10 days on Mallorca. So, yeah.
No, because 10 days out of a year is really not going to give you much.
Discuss expectations to avoid misunderstandings.
Definitely. I mean, this is a major problem with relationships, isn't it? That people have different expectations and they've never actually sat down and talked about what their expectations are. They've made assumptions, as you spoke about before. Many people make assumptions about each other and don't, in fact, ask whether those assumptions are based on any reality whatsoever. And it's very important to actually discuss what you expect out of this relationship and whether the other person has the same ideas as you or not.
Okay, here we go. Number 5, prepare for conflict and discuss how you will repair.
Seems very organised, doesn't it? I think it would be fairly unrealistic to think that any couple could live together for any period of time, but especially over many, many years, and not come into conflict at some point about various issues in their lives. So I think it's important to expect that that is a reality.
But
Discuss that from the beginning and how you're going to repair. I'm not sure. I mean, I think discuss the fact that there are rules of engagement.
Yeah.
And some people are dirty fighters and some people aren't.
Yeah.
It does help to have a similar fighting style.
Yeah. One of the things that I use, both with couples, but I've always got running in my head, is a homework process that I give couples, which is about fighting fair.
Oh, yes.
And it's based on fundamentally 3 sections. The first one is stick to your values. If you're going to be loving, respectful and cooperative. And that includes being in a fight.
Yes.
The other part of it is there are 4 behaviours that are unacceptable. And the Gottmans talk about this as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Being critical, being contemptuous, being defensive and stonewalling. They're the things you don't do in a relationship. So constantly criticising my partner about stuff, just unacceptable. Especially if it's little things like, you didn't clean the shelves. Or, that it sounds trivial, but some people do that.
It's not trivial. That's the sort of stuff that completely destroys a relationship. I mean, apart from anything else, it's just rude. And that's a very important thing to remember, that you have the same civil obligations to your partner as you have to anybody else. You have no right to be rude or abusive to them any more than you would be to anybody else. But unfortunately, some people do not step back and think about how they are speaking to their partners.
So, number 6, communicate effectively. Now, again, you're going, I can see it. You're going, this is all very, very organised, very, very structured. And I agree, but sometimes it helps to break things down. To me, what's good communication, what's effective communication? Well, the first thing is bloody well listen. A lot of people don't, they speak, but they're not hearing, they're not listening to what the other person's actually saying because they're too busy in their own head.
Especially when they're fighting.
Yes, exactly. So the last 2 podcasts that I did on mindful listening and mindful speaking. And it's what you were saying earlier on, is, don't say things to your partner you wouldn't say to somebody else.
Oh, absolutely.
Calling them an F-word or whatever is just unacceptable. So, I think that, it's good sometimes to unpack this sort of stuff because a lot of people don't think consciously about what they're saying and how they're saying it to each other.
Well, where those words have come from and whether they're actually their own words or not.
And it also applies with how you speak to your children, especially
Yes.
teenagers.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Develop rituals of connection. Well, I think we do that pretty well.
Well, I think that's an important part of the way you set up your lives together, isn't it? And those will change as your life changes, and there will be points where you might need to deliberately sit down and go, how are we going to manage this? You know, I mean, if you've got a very busy household with children and jobs and, you know, running around with after school sports and activities, how do you find time together? You might need to actually sit down and book it in, you know, and make it a definite.
It's not going to happen organically.
No, you need to focus on, well, first of all, you need to recognise that actually it's very important that you come together as a couple in order to realign with each other before you go back out into that world of busyness that you live in.
And that brings me to the next one, which is attune to your partner. And it's that, you know, importance of being together in that space, which allows both of us to have empathy for the other.
Oh, look, it's as simple as making sure you greet each other when you come back into the house.
And when you
actually
leave.
Recognise where that person's at. You know, so if your partner comes home and doesn't even greet you and just wanders off into whatever, you know, another room doing whatever they're going to do, how are you going to know what mental state they're in at the time, whether they've had a terrible day or a good day, whether they need a cuddle or whether, you know...
Points of contact.
Yes, those points of contact are so important, and it's important not just for your partner but for the children. You must always greet each other and check in with each other.
And that's the
How
stuff
are you
about,
going? How's your day? You know, where are you at?
Yeah, it's all about attachment.
It's all about attachment.
And and people think, oh, once we're attached, we're attached. No.
No. It requires constant monitoring and reconnection.
Yep. Establish a regular stress-reducing conversation.
Well, that's an interesting set of words, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I presume that would mean, maybe I'm wrong, that you have conversations that aren't about all the mess in your life and that are just fun and that actually, you know, provide you with an opportunity to realign with each other.
Yeah. Keep it light. Accept for and give forgiveness.
Well, I mean, that is fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you, and it goes along with the whole idea of expectations. If you expect your partner to be a human being,
Not
then
perfect.
You expect them to have issues at times that might rub you up the wrong way. And you need to be able to let that go and forgive them.
Or let them know.
Or let them know. Well, it's always important to let them know, but you need to be able to not belabour it, not harass people over it. I mean, really, just think about it. Would you like to be treated that way?
No.
Do not treat your partner in any way that you would not like to be treated yourself. Just like you don't treat anybody else in any way you don't want to be treated yourself.
So fairly reasonable, but, you know, a little bit structured.
Well, you know, the wording is very formal, I think you could say.
Yeah.
So for someone coming to this without the opportunity to talk about it with someone else, they might find it a bit hard to get their heads around. But as long as it's explained effectively, it would be fine.
But fundamentally, it is what will help a relationship to thrive, I think.
Yes.
I think certainly we've experienced it, you know, even from a less formalised approach, that they're the elements that bring us together.
It's about building alignment.
Yeah. So I'm just conscious of the time. So I think it's a useful thing to think about. I'm hoping that we've given our listeners a little bit of entertainment as well as points of reflection. Keeping in mind we're all human beings, none of us are perfect. It never will run perfectly. But that's what this is about. It's about, let's think about the long haul. I think, and unfortunately there are lots of teenagers out there who don't see long-term relationships.
Well, that's one of the major and fundamental problems with divorce, of course, is that immediately the children lose their trust in long-term relationships and their belief that it's possible.
That's right.
Especially if their parents deal with it in a way that is adversarial and combative and hurtful.
Yeah, you cannot firstly stay in a relationship that's emotionally or physically or both abusive. That's rule number one, because that's what the kids are going to learn as well. But you also need to think about leaving a relationship for the right reasons.
Yes, and being kind to each other when you discover that you've made a mistake and it's not working, okay. But you need to remember that you loved this person once and there were good reasons for that. And even though it didn't last, you and that person and the children you had together deserve for you to do it in a friendly, cooperative and respectful manner.
Yes, absolutely. And on that note, Lorin, thank you very much for joining me. As always, it's been a pleasure.
My pleasure, darling.
You're welcome. And no doubt we usually continue these things long after we stop having the podcast. So to all you listeners out there, I hope this was entertaining, useful, a point of reflection. Maybe it's a turning point for you about how you are in your relationship. Certainly, it's something that needs to be done intentionally and consciously. So until next time, this is me signing off.
And goodbye from me as well.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change with Gunter. Gunter Swoboda does individual and group coaching for men looking to grow. For more information on this and the global Making Good Men Great movement, check out goodmengreat.com to get into contact. If you have a topic for the show or would like to be a guest on the air, please email producers at miranda@noirtainment.com. That's Miranda, Miranda, at noirtainment, noirtainment.com. Thank you, and always keep inspiring change.